So let's start one by one. The first question is, Tata Group is very well known for its strong values and ethical practices, right? It is known for shaping people as natural leaders. So how do you feel that Tata value framework influenced your leadership style and kind of give you that clarity when you make decisions throughout your career and even today when you consult and advise your client in their decision making? I'm sure that would be having some role to play, right?
A big role to play, not some. You see, because you know what I said when I said the why Tata Group, it was a natural group because, as I said, I was exposed to it, great respect internally, obviously known for its value system, its ethics. So it was a natural choice for a young child to kind of look at that, look up to it and say, you know what, this is a great place I can start my career. And I know that it'll be easy to work here, right? It's something that it was a childish notion. It was not easy, but what I would say was easy was the value system side of it, right? When I joined, it was a very interesting time for the group itself. So I joined as part of TAS, and even the TAS selection was brutal. I mean, we were probably after that, it's become a lot simpler because they go to campus and pick up like it happens with most other companies. But for us, we had a 3-day selection with each round being an elimination, and we were centers, right? So it was a tough selection. Of course, I prepared for it. So it was okay. I made it through, right? But that was a time when a lot of changes were happening in the group itself. And there was something called the Tata work levels that came about, where they started looking at what is it that the leadership practices do you want within the group? What is it? How do you kind of codify it, right? And because I joined Tata Group at that time as a TAS officer, we got exposed a lot more to that way of being assessed. So even though I would be posted into a company, we did have our assessment coming in from the center. So as a result of that, the entire leadership framework on how you are evaluated literally became a part and parcel of who you are, right? So you kind of imbibe that in it. And it was interesting because of the 14 leadership practices around 3 clear pillars. So the business pillar, the results pillar, and the people pillar. And in all, you had these 14 leadership practices. Each of them was then defined for depending on what level you are, initial managerial level or the executive, because it's going right from initial managerial to the CEO, right? So you actually had what is a displayed behavior that you should have around these parameters. And because of this entire framework, you literally land up imbibing that into you. And then it becomes like default, like breathing, right? In the way you look at people, the way you look at yourself first, and then the way you look at people. Let me give you an example. So for instance, in business, and I don't wish to give the framework because that's not my role to do, but just to give you an idea, you would have things within that which were saying things like managing vision and purpose, managing. So how do you kind of translate that? And you're assessed on, there is a 5-point scale at a managerial level, 5-point scale at an executive level, right? And what is a displayed behavior for your level? And do you display that behavior or do you display more of that behavior? So it's a brilliant framework, right? And so you'd have things like strategic capability, innovation management, you'd have, drive for results. I'm mixing all of them up purposely, but you have each of these things which are, or in people's side, it's taking ownership, but it's also interpersonal effectiveness, but it's also building teams. It's also withstanding pressure. So how do you manage yourself as an emotional? So if you see, even in each of these, there were different kind of a rating scale of sorts. And now guess what happens? If you've done this, and I left after 15 years, and even when I switched over, once we're after the first 5 years, you get absorbed into a company. Even after getting absorbed in a company and adopting their way of assessments, this stays at the back of your mind, always, never goes away, right? And so that kind of has carried forward in the way I look at things. I look at people, I look at planning, I look at managing myself, of course, but also in the way I assess. One of the biggest challenges you have is that people get assessed at the point you are, or your frame of reference, right? And that is where a lot of the challenges start. So this framework or this way of thinking allows you to remember what is the demonstrated behavior you expect at the level, and what is it that how do you help a person move that? So I think the beauty of the group was always, it was always very understanding of the fact that people have different journeys as a professional, and how do you facilitate that rather than belittle that. But at the same time, how do you reward people who are faster? A very important thing that many people miss. So why is there such a strong core of the Tata group, or why is it that it's so much in your DNA, or why is it that it's a very rare Tata employee who has left the group who will speak badly about the group? You will rarely ever find that. Even if they've had a bad time at the group or they've had a bad boss, right? They will not speak badly about the group, because there is something amazing about that DNA that kind of builds it. And you know, they always try to do right. And I think that is what makes a lot of difference. So people take it away saying, you know what, they as a group try to do it right. Even if at an individual something went wrong. So I think that is something that I practice a lot, and it's really now like breathing. So I don't even think about it. When you ask the question is when I'm articulating it, I don't articulate it anymore, you know, so.
So yeah, absolutely. And that resonates a lot. It kind of becomes muscle memory if it is done early on, right? This is more like when you teach a child certain things, it becomes a natural instinct. And the same thing Tata Group does for its people. I remember when I was in Pilani, one reason people would love TCS as an employer is because of their initial 1 year of the training period that they would have. It was phenomenal, right? And you're talking about the same time when these changes were taking place. So I can now relate to the conversation that I was having in college that time in 2001 timeframe. And
I'll give you one. I'll give you one thing extra here. When you said this, it's very fascinating. As TAS, we had something called a Bharat Darshan, right? And basically, Bharat Darshan meant that you literally went from company to company, company to company. You went to the ground level. You went to stuff that is done at a foundation level by the various companies. You went into the plants. You also had a conversation with the managing director or the directors. So you literally got an exposure, and that is a kind of investment that was made in that. So what you're saying,
right?
Yes, I mean, that's a great memory that you triggered for me as well. That investment in actually onboarding or making you understand is an important part. Please continue. You were saying.
Kind of exposing you to different ideas, different perspectives, and right from the lowest end of the value chain to the highest end of the value chain. So it's like you see that how the person at MD level is thinking and how it is getting translated at a factory shop floor probably. And you could also appreciate the good things as well as figure out the gaps, right? Obviously the management thinks, but the ground level reality could be different. So this journey is very beautifully done by Tata. They have actually mastered it, I would say.
And I will add one more thing here for you as well, is that the Tata principles, right? So a lot of people say there are values, and the values are actually lived, because the last bit is well. So we have our value around responsibility, which is whatever comes from the people goes back to the people many times over. And that literally is something you've got to remember. I mean, I could just rattle it off, right? But as you're talking, some of these things literally come back to memory up front. And that is really how we were, because like you said, the shop floor, but you also go out and you see what's happening in Meetapur with the what your foundation level stuff is happening. So it's not just saying it ends at just going to Tata Chemical Factory. It also goes forward to seeing what's happening beyond into the society around you. Or in Jamshedpur, I worked in Tata Steel for a bit, and what you can see the impact beyond just Tata Steel employees, you know, and that is the kind of stuff that really kind of stays with every employee.
Yeah, and in these days, like the MNCs talk about the stickiness, people switch jobs quite often because I feel that this is something that they are unable to crack as a group, as a company. That you need to build that association, you need to build that feeling of a community and make a person feel that he's making a contribution to a bigger cause, right? That's what Tata Group does very well.
But the reason that the group is able to do this very well is because they're not trying.
Yes, it is natural, right?
And it is natural because our founder was that way. The next generation, whether it was Jamshedji Tata, whether it was his sons, Rora and Ratan, whether then it was JRD Tata, then whether it was Ratan Tata, you know, everyone, or even the middle, Saklatwala was there. Everyone has actually lived it. And then, of course, Cyrus, and then now Chandra. So each person who has kind of taken it has taken it through in a way that is natural, organic, honest. The minute you try to do it in a way which is fake, or which is too structured, or which is too because I'm trying to get a goal achieved. So in our case, we have a very simple thing, righteousness for the sake of righteousness. So your best good for the sake of doing the best good. That is something that's a philosophy for us in our community as well. And so when you're trying to do it for an extra purpose or for some extra credit, that is when you will not get the results. When you're doing it for the sake of actually just that goal, you'll get it.
Absolutely. I was talking to another person in Tata Group, and we had this brief conversation around DEI initiatives. And his response was very beautiful. We don't even have to think about it because we do it naturally. And that is why you never see Tata saying that we are doing something on DEI, while others are actually becoming sensitive about it, right?
So I think a lot of credit goes to Dr. Ritwan for some of the work that she did with TCS, which was one of the biggest employers of women as such, right? I mean, employers as numbers, and then of course the kind of number of women that you see there. And I think, again, I see that TCS never made a big song and dance about it, right? And I think it flows right from the management, whether it was, from Ramadurai or Chandra or then Rajesh or now, it's very natural for that company, which actually employs so many people, to actually just do it. They live it, right? So I think what you're saying is true. Many people don't even know that we had actually put an ACE line in Pantnagar, where there were, and I'm talking of ACE line Pantnagar long back, where we had women on the shop floor. We had that in Sanand when we did some of the nano work. Then, of course, in Tiago Tigor came in. And then, of course, now a lot of conversation is happening around the Harrier Safari line, where there are a lot of female workforce, so to speak. And that's the other thing, right? The entire thing about, and I say this, I correct everyone, because very often I get told, oh, you're a female leader or woman leader or whatever. I say, you never say male leader, man leader. I never hear that, right? Leader is leader. And that is the kind of behavior we at least faced within the group. We didn't have this unnecessary push. Individual level, yes. Group level, no.